Welcome to Vitality Radio, where we empower you to gain control in order to take your health and vitality to the next level. Now here's your host, Dr. Lionel King.
Hello, it's Dr. Lionel King coming at you for episode number 2, the second show. I'm excited.
We got 2 under our belt.
2 under our belt. I am here with Joe from the Joe Show. How's it going, Joe?
Good. How was your week?
Oh, the week was fantastic.
Weekend, I should say. That's the fun part.
Yeah. Well, you know, the weekend, it's all the same for me. But I had a ball. It was, you know, I have fun no matter what I'm doing. My motto is, if it ain't fun, don't do it. Yeah. So I have fun whatever I do.
Our family motto is actually work hard, play hard.
Yeah, so I like that too.
That's good.
I like that too. But if I can get rid of some of the work, it's even better. So I am excited about today's show. I did a fantastic interview with Dr. Joel Fuhrman. This is the guy that I mean, he's been on like so many of the documentaries. He was the main physician in Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, which I recommend to anyone out there thinking about losing weight or trying to lose weight, or if you want to learn more about juicing. He's been on so many of the other documentaries as well. He's just a phenomenal guy. He's family doc. He's like traditionally trained, board certified in family medicine, but he has studied in depth nutrition, and he treats his patients through nutrition. He's just a fascinating person, and you can really hear the passion in his voice when you listen to the interview.
I got to edit it and, make sure it sounded good and get it ready. And I really like a lot of the stuff he said. He kind of, he takes the mainstream thought of what you should do in all these books that are out there and lose weight fast. And he's like, you know what? Lose weight right.
Yes, absolutely.
I really enjoyed what he said. Matter of fact, I'm going to apply some of it, I think, in my life. So
now, one of my concerns is, you have 2 doctors talking to each other for 40 minutes. And so, sometimes we can just start talking and it can kind of go over people's heads. So I hope there wasn't too much medical jargon.
No, it wasn't bad. No, not at all. Matter of fact, he brings it back and you guys bring it back to where he talks about his family. You talk about your family and where it all came from. No, it's well-rounded. It's a great, great interview.
I love it. And there was a couple places where, there was a little bit of debate there.
Oh, yeah. You said this thing, how you believed and how, and
he says, no, I disagree. I disagree.
No. But then he ties it into where what you said makes sense. He wasn't calling you dumb. He just said, look at it this way.
Right. Exactly.
A very smart guy. I mean, the guy is just brilliant.
Yeah, he is. And he's done great things. I mean, thousands and thousands of people, lost tremendous amount of weight just by reading his book, let alone listening to him or going to see him. So he has a lot of great things to say, and it's just not his theory. He actually practices it himself.
He's been on morning shows and Dr. Oz and stuff like that, too.
He's been all over TV.
This guy gets around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you're out there doing great things, it's hard to keep it a secret. That's for sure.
I really enjoyed what he said about why he wrote the book, because that way he's got something documenting and substantiating who he is and where he's coming from.
Right.
So
right.
I thought that was a great point of view.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I was very fortunate to be able to get him on the show. I mean, this guy is like fully booked, for a couple of years. I mean, it's hard to get him. And so he looked at my book and reviewed it and reviewed what I was doing, and he instantly said, yeah. And within a couple of weeks, I had him interviewing him. Within a couple of weeks, it was phenomenal. I was excited about it.
Precursor to explain who he is in the beginning, I thought for sure he was going to come down from heaven. Really great things.
And he's passionate. That's the key. He's passionate about what he does. There was a lot of great feedback. I think that we are really on to something big. I think that we have something that the population needs. It's already doing some great things and moving people. So just getting the word out through social media and different type of other radio shows and promos, getting as many people involved and listening as possible. We're going to start a Facebook page just for the show as well, so people can communicate and ask questions and things of that nature. So it's growing already, so I'm excited for the ride.
On my end, I heard a lot of good things, too, from the the 2 station owners. They're really excited about having you on with them. A lot of people that listen to other shows were, talking to me about, hey, what's the deal with this guy? And and the way these people are, you have to understand, you're talking to a smart crowd, both from Salty and from Raz Radio. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee they're not like, oh, okay, Dr. King got it. They looked you up. They probably know where you live. Half of them are conspiracy theorists and the other half are just, what I'm saying is it's a very high IQ crowd out there.
Right. Right.
I think internet radio attracts a more interested crowd.
Well, the first thing is you got to be able to sign on the internet.
Yeah.
That's the first barrier.
But with the phones nowadays, they just load a program, and once people get into internet radio, getting around is just as easy as your dial.
Mm-hmm.
To them,
even easier.
Yeah, they click a button and there's their show. A reminder pops up on their phone, then the software starts, and then the show starts. They don't even do anything.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing. And the coolest thing is, as of last year, internet radio is more than 50% of the listening audience is internet radio. So out of terrestrial and internet radio is taken over more than half.
Oh, wow.
Of the listeners.
It's a funny story. I was talking to my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter. I actually posted it on Facebook as well. I said, oh, Daddy's going to be on the radio tonight. And she says, I thought radio was a long time ago.
You know what? And from her point of view, it was a long time
ago.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Radio, like, well, you driving there in your Studebaker, Dad?
It was hilarious.
Kids, man, I love getting a point of view from children. They will reveal some stuff that will just blow your mind because you stop thinking like that. Unfortunately, you need to hold on to part of that, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
It helps you hold on to the ground level.
Well, let's go ahead and get the show cranked up, and let's do it.
Here we go.
We are here with Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who is a board-certified family physician, New York Times bestselling author, and nutritional researcher who specializes in preventing and reversing disease through nutritional and natural methods. Dr. Fuhrman is an internationally recognized expert on nutrition and natural healing and has appeared on hundreds of radio and television shows, including The Dr. Oz Show, The Today Show, Good Morning America, and Live with Kelly. Dr. Fuhrman's own hugely successful PBS television shows, 3 Steps to Incredible Health, and Dr. Fuhrman's Immunity Solution bring nutritional science to homes all across America. Dr. Joel Fuhrman, I cannot tell you how privileged and honored I am for you to be spending time with us here on Vitality Radio. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Lionel. Great to be here with you.
Absolutely. So you have done amazing things. I don't know how in the world, and you still practice every day. You see patients every day. You're writing books. You're on TV shows. You got your own shows. You have a family. I think that you have a wife and 4 kids. Is it? I remember reading.
Yeah,
how do you do it all? That's my biggest question. How in the world do you do it all?
Well, over the years, I've put in a lot of work time. I remember when I first started writing books, I'd have to be writing books from like 10 o'clock at night till 1 in the morning, after coming back from working all day. It wasn't easy, but now I do have to spend more of my time traveling and speaking and writing. So I do see patients less than I used to. And I have, a doctor, other doctors in my office seeing most of the patients. So I'm not seeing patients full time anymore like I used to.
Okay. What gave you the motivation to really go down the route of getting this information out? A lot of physicians, or a lot of people in general, especially in the healthcare field, they have a lot of great information, but they just don't take the time to provide it for the masses. So what was your motivation behind writing the books, like writing your first book? What was the motivation, behind that?
I think that I was able to be more effective as a physician if I wrote the books. It was for the benefit of my patients, the community, and the public at large. In other words, even seeing patients and telling them what you wanted them to do was left with a lot of uncertainty, doubt, and the fact that people have been told a lot of conflicting information. And until you really explain it in detail, write it in a book and reference it, it's hard for people, meaning the outside community, to evaluate what your position is, why you've come to that position, and the scientific documentation and logic that supports it. So I think that being able to write it in book form gives you a degree of credibility that people can start taking what you're saying more seriously. And certainly, been a big boost to my ability to get this message out to help people to write books.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, because especially in today's healthcare environment, we're given 15 minutes to try to turn someone's life around, and we're shooting so much information at them at one time. It's really hard to grasp.
That's definitely true what you just said. I mean, in a patient visit, you can't give them enough information. So as a physician, you have three choices. You have to recommend the book they read. You have to give them a video to watch, or you have to set up a group lecture in your office that people can come in and you can speak to them in groups for longer periods of time. Because you can't do it in a one-patient time slot. Even if you spend an hour with them, it's not sufficient to give them all the information you want them to have.
Now, did you have anything growing up in your life that really sparked this? I know that you were a champion figure skater. That was your first career, and then I read that you had an injury, and it wasn't until after your injury is when you really pursued medicine. How did that all come together?
It wasn't until many years later that I pursued going back to medical school. Yeah, I was a competitive figure skater in my teenage years and young adult life. When I was young, my father was overweight and sickly, and he got into health and nutrition books. So I read a lot of health and nutrition books and natural healing books. My father lost about 50 pounds. He felt better. As a competitive figure skater, for better stamina and conditioning, I would eat healthy. So I was already into healthy eating. My father introduced it into the home, and I already started to observe what that could do. So I already had a background in that. After my skating career, and I got hurt, I was on crutches for almost a year, I think, and I had fasted, and I was hurt pretty badly from an injury. And then after that, I was getting better slowly over the years, and went back into my family's chain of shoe stores. My father had a chain of 10 orthopedic shoe stores in the New York City area. And I realized it wasn't really what I wanted to do, as far as it didn't really feel like I would want to do that for the rest of my career. And I was teaching ice skating and on a national, international level. So I was moving ahead and doing things, but I really felt that I always had this longing and love for the healthcare, especially nutrition. So I went back to medical school at the age of 29, specifically to be a physician specializing in nutritional medicine. I already had that as the plan. I didn't become a doctor and then switch. I decided to go to medical school with this goal in mind.
Beautiful. Yeah, so you were laser focused on exactly what you wanted to do.
I did a TED Talk, about a 15-minute TED Talk. I think people can search for it. It's a TEDx talk that I gave where I went through how I became a physician and how it influenced my life in such a dramatic way.
Yeah, I actually watched that TED Talk. It was extremely inspiring. I loved it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I watched it. It's very challenging to put all of that information in 15 minutes. It takes a skill set to be able to do that.
Absolutely. It's always picking out what you want to leave out and just put in the message you want to get across. Yeah.
Another very impressive skill that I've noticed that you have is being able to take complex information and put it into succinct, easy to digest concepts. One which I absolutely love is the formula that you came up with to really kind of give people something to go by, the H equals N over C. And that is health equals nutrients over calories. And that concept is just brilliant because there's so much information out there. There's so much conflicting information. People don't know what to eat. They don't know what to do. Confused about all of the fad diets and everything like that. And this really just brings it back to basics and saying, listen, if you want to be healthy, you want to get the most nutrients as possible per calorie that you eat. And it's just so simple and it makes so much sense. Can you expound on how you came up with that?
It was just obvious to me, I guess, that foods that the body needs nutrients. In other words, I coined a term to represent the type of diet style I recommend, and that's a nutritarian diet. Nutritarian means a diet rich in nutrients. And I say that, clearly that the American diet, with 60% of calories from processed foods, have most of their micronutrients lost in the processing, and that the other 30% of calories eaten by Americans, which are animal products, don't contain phytochemicals and antioxidants. They're calorically dense, and they're good for gaining weight, but they're, and being a 300-pound linebacker on a football team, but they're not geared towards longevity. They're not going to make you live a long time. You got to get the micronutrients and phytochemicals. So what I'm saying here is that a nutritarian diet has three basic principles that define it. And without talking about what food to eat, let's just go over those principles just so people understand what it is. Number one, the diet has to have a high nutrient density. It means you have to get high levels of the phytochemicals and antioxidants and a broad spectrum of nutrients that humans require, right? That's obvious. And we can't, and we have to do it without getting excessive amount of calories, because excess calories shortens lifespan. And I don't think anybody could disagree with that. It's like every nutritional scientist in the world has to agree that we can't eat in excess calories and we have to get our nutrient needs met, right? I mean, okay. And number two, that our diet has to be nutritionally complete. We can't just get a large amount of certain nutrients, like we can't just eat tons of broccoli and kale and then be deficient in B12 and DHA and zinc and iodine or whatever that could be low. And so the diet, and vitamin D, the diet has to fill in the gaps to contain all the nutrients humans need so no deficiencies are present. And number three, the diet style, which is important. Number three, the diet can't produce hormones in excessive amounts in the body that could promote cancer or shorten life. Like that could be too much insulin from eating too many high glycemic foods, or too much IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1, from eating too many high quality animal protein because of IGF-1, or being estrogen promoting. In other words, we can't let excessive hormones promote cancer. So we have to have a diet that's hormonally favorable. So I think a diet that's hormonally favorable. I don't think anybody could disagree with that either. And the fourth, I said three, but I just had a fourth one I wanted to add, and that is the diet shouldn't contain toxins or poisons or chemicals or things that could hurt our health. Like we don't want to take in PCBs and dioxin and expose ourselves to asbestos or we want to avoid things that are pollution in tuna or swordfish and mercury. So we want to avoid toxins. So to review that is nutrient density, nutrient comprehensive or completeness. The third one is hormonally favorable. And the fourth one is free, not to consume any toxins or harmful substances. And I think that if we use those four principles as a basics, then we can say, okay, so now what diet style would be most favorable for that in the modern world? So, I'm suggesting, and I talked about this a lot in my book, in my newest book called The End of Dieting. I'm suggesting that the preponderance of evidence is overwhelming, and that I think most nutritional scientists, without predetermined biases and without selective perception who are trying to prove one view or another, that most of people can review the evidence and would have to come to a similar conclusion, and that there shouldn't be a lot of confusion in the nutritional world. But in fact, what people have done is they've put themselves in various religious camps of belief systems. Right. They don't think with a scientific manner. They've all got predetermined biases looking to support their viewpoints. And I think the evidence is overwhelming today, and that the vast majority of nutritional scientists who are true scientists actually agree with these 4 points I just said and agree with my conclusions, actually. I think the controversies are becoming less and less.
Yes. I agree. There's so many biases. And one of the biggest biases is cultural. Well, obviously financial is probably the biggest bias, but what I've found is people that come from, whether it be a Latin background, whether it be an African background, whether it be a Southern background, we have embedded in us so much culture. It's like we're going against everything that we learned growing up and everything that's been embedded in us as a part of our identity. These foods that are killing us, and to be able to just accept the fact that the way that my parents lived and my grandparents lived, and
I don't agree. I do not agree with you. I'm sorry to be controversial here, but it's not your grandparents and great grandparents and ancestors did not eat these fast foods we eat today. Did not have a diet with all sugar in it, and did not eat McDonald's and Coca-Cola and snort cocaine and do these things that we have available in today's society. I'm suggesting it's not cultural. It's that these processed foods and high calorically dense foods and dangerous foods are addicting, and they take over part of the mind and they destroy cultures. What happens is that the exposure to cheap fast food has destroyed the culture of these people in the inner city. They've taken away their ability to do advancements. That high sugar processed foods and processed and commercial meats, and those foods are addicting. They've been designed to be addicting. It's only been the last 50 or 60 years they've been so impregnated into our population in dangerous ways. They're not generational. They didn't come about for many years ago. A matter of fact, I think that if you look at go back a few generations, you'll find a lot of these populations were eating healthier back a few generations back. And they weren't having all the problems, aggressive behavior, poor advancements, behavioral problems, criminality, and and ability to advance in school, I'm saying that the poor nutrition that we're getting today, and that from modern foods, from fast food and processed foods, is destroying the future potential of parts of our society. And the foods themselves are so powerfully addicting that people come up with rationalizations why it's hard to quit, hard to change, part of the culture, part of the social fabric. So I'm agreeing that in the southern part of the United States, for example, if you look at Louisiana, Mississippi, and the four southern states the four southern states around the Gulf of Mexico, compared to the four southern states to the left, like New Mexico and Arizona, there's a 400% increased risk of premature heart disease. In other words, that's 4 times the risk of early cardiac death in those states compared to the ones just adjacent them. I understand it's cultural and socially embedded, but I'm suggesting that it's not ingrained in people's heritage, that it's more ingrained from the foods themselves become so addicting. And now it's become cultural to the South, that South area that are, they celebrate, rich food in the most obese area of the country. But I'm also suggesting that if you look at, the history of pellagra, of niacin deficiency, of populations that ate only corn, they started to develop mental problems, and they started to develop problems with advancing, and they started to develop subtle. I'm saying right now that food is so critical. It's so critical as a solution to the advancements of people who are held into poverty and poor ability to advancements. And the poor choices of food is a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps these people from reaching their genetic potential, because they're not fed properly as children, and then they think they can't get out of it because they become food addicts. I don't think it's the heritage, because it wasn't happening in the 1800s and the 1700s. It wasn't generations ago. These foods are so new to society that's causing all this destruction. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely do. But I guess the definition of it, when we talk about it, you're speaking of a lot of things that have come about recently as far as with the processed food and, we don't eat real food anymore.
Right.
But I grew up on a farm. We ate real food, and we didn't eat processed food, and we didn't have all the junk food, but we had the meats. We had primarily a meat diet, gravy, fried foods. And so, granted, we didn't really suffer from, my family didn't really suffer from obesity as much, or attention problems or aggression and all of these things, but one of the things that inspired me to go the path that I'm going is that, I lost my father to pancreatic cancer. And I'm convinced that, the fact that it was ingrained in my family and in my culture, the barbecues, the ribs, and everything was meat based. And the little bit of vegetables that we did eat were either cooked to the point of you couldn't recognize them, or covered to the point that you couldn't recognize them with various, dressings and things of that nature. And all of that was cultural. I didn't know any different. And not only that, but I thought that I was living healthy. The lifestyle that people are living today in the urban communities, there's no question. You can't even think that you're doing something correct. But my parents and my grandparents, they thought that they were living healthy, and they were just misinformed. The whole food pyramid that you talk about in your book, as far as what was promoted as healthy, was completely different. And so I think there's been a shift from what people thought that they were doing that was healthy but wasn't, into just complete destructive behavior and food addictions. I think there's been a shift.
Absolutely, I agree with you. But you know what? What's interesting, what you're saying, is that it sounds as if the paleo people, like the Atkins, the paleo, the Duke, the South Beach diet, are having people believe that that's the healthiest. They're teaching people, and because people are so addicted to unhealthy foods, and they have it ingrained in them, they've been doing it, they kind of like prefer those foods, so they'll almost believe the nonsense they're hearing from the media or from these books. And in spite of the fact that the literature shows that the American diet is 30% of calories from animal products, and when they consider that 30% in the highest quartile of animal protein consumption compared to people that have consuming less, 5 or 10%, you see a 400% or a 4 times the increased risk of cancer deaths, and 75% increased risk of early life death between the age of 50 and 65 compared to people in the lower percentage of animal protein intake. And then when you consider that 75% increased risk of death, 400% increased risk of cancer, that's not even the amount of animal protein recommended by these diet styles, because some of them are up to 40, 50, and 60% of calories from animal products, which could mean that they're promoting cancer rates by, tenfold. In other words, they're tremendously dangerous, and they're the most popular diets out there. The ones that are most dangerous, the ones that are most popular, because like you're saying, people gravitate towards believing things, what they want to eat and what they get used to eating through their life. Those diets haven't been around for generations, of course, but, but nevertheless, we're still seeing this problem today.
Well, actually, the paleo diet, it's suggested that is the way that, our ancestors ate, and that's hence the title or the name of the diet in itself. And one thing that I see, I love CrossFit, right? So CrossFit is probably one of the biggest cultures that promote the paleo diet. And so when you have someone that is 100 pounds overweight because they're eating processed food, they're eating all this junk, and then they come into the whole, CrossFit culture. So now they're actually eating a lot better than they were. They're actually paying attention to what they're putting into their body, and they're moving, they're exercising. And so now they drop all this weight. And so, these are everyday people that are not reading research papers. They're not looking at cancer rates and what animal protein diet does with cancer rates. All they're seeing is the dramatic difference in their own health and in their own body, and says, wow, this works. And, it's highly popular and televised, and, all the CrossFitters and everything like that, and these ripped bodies. And so I think that that's another thing that people gravitate to, is what they can actually see. Cancer to most people is this big mystery that will happen. They feel like it's just going to happen. It's just something that eventually is going to happen and you can't prevent it. Most people don't view cancer as a preventable disease.
Well, you're essentially saying that people are misinformed.
Yes.
They're not educated.
Yes.
They don't consider their long-term health when they make choices nutritionally. They consider short-term goals, not long-term goals.
Correct.
And, that's really why I wrote the book, The End of Dieting, to describe all the dangers with having short-term goals instead of long-term goals. You can snort cocaine and smoke cigarettes to lose weight.
Right.
But it's not going to benefit your long-term goal.
Right.
So, and the question is, what really has to, so that's really one of the definitions of, of true intelligence and self-preservation is having long-term goals rather than short-term goals. And long-term goals is that, are you going to be demented in your later years? Are you going to be living after the age of 80? If you are living between the ages of 80 and 100, are you going to have your full physical and mental faculties intact?
Absolutely.
For example, we know that football players, especially linebackers, have the shortest lifespan of any group in North America, and if they die relatively young, and they have the worst healthy life expectancy, which means they have poor mental function and physical function in their body when they get older. So they sacrifice their future health for short-term goals, and
these are some of the most fit appearing people on Earth, in their prime.
That's right. They're fit, but they're big, too big, and so that so we need to give people we need to educate people properly, and we need to make a counter argument to all the noise out there, which want to sell people some short-term magic. When I look at what's, I always through the years looking at the best-selling diet books, it was always whatever gave people, a short-term, like lose 50 pounds in a month or drop, take this magic pill. People are always looking for some magic, fast, instantaneously results. They're not looking at what's sensible, what's sane, what's going to benefit them long-term, what science supports. And my argument in what we're talking about here is I'm saying among people who are informed about what the science does show, there shouldn't be controversies anymore.
Right. That's true. That's true.
High animal product diets are dangerous to your long-term future and long-term health. That doesn't mean people can't eat a ketogenic diet or can't cut out carbohydrates and eat animal products with green vegetables and can't get cut and get looking good in the gym. But looking good in I always tell people it doesn't matter how good you look once you're in a coffin.
Well,
and also you can get ripped and strong eating healthy too. You don't have to, it's not the only way to get ripped and strong. But anyway.
Well, that's why your work is so important, because, you know, we kind of live this every day, but it's shocking how many people don't realize any of this. You know, I just run into it every single day. They just don't know. And after you tell them, a lot of times they don't believe because they're so attached to their prior beliefs, and it's become you know, part of their identity. And then the food addictions that you mentioned, you'll do anything to support those. Absolutely. So what would you recommend? Well, first of all, I want to get some things clear for our listeners out there as far as animal protein versus plant protein. Animal protein diet versus plant protein diet. Can you expound on exactly what that means and the ratio, if any, that a person should consume animal protein versus plant protein?
Right. So I guess what we're saying here is that animal protein and plant protein foods, they're two completely different animals, and that we learned when we were in kindergarten and elementary school that the high biological value of animal protein made it more favorable because it was more growth promoting, and because you can get a rat bigger if you feed it more animal protein and plant protein. They can grow up faster. Over the years, we've learned that the animals that grow the fastest and get the biggest die the youngest. That more rapid growth leads to more early death. And then over the last 5 or 10 years, as nutritional science has made advances, we've learned that we can extend the life of animals, including primates, by having them grow slower, and that especially exposing them to growth hormones, particularly IGF-1, as an adult, would create proliferation of cancer cells and abnormal cells, leading to their premature death and accelerate aging. So we learned over the years that IGF-1 signaling, that's insulin-like growth factor 1, also resembles the insulin molecule, can bind to the insulin receptor and promote fat storage in the body, and insulin itself can likewise these hormones are proangiogenesis, which means they promote the growth of blood vessels that cancer cells need to replicate. So we've learned that plant proteins, because they're not as biologically complete, the body has to match them in order to promote growth, and in doing so, does what it needs without excess. It gives you enough to promote normal growth and normal muscular and body function, but it's hard for the body to produce excess growth hormone or excess growth that's going to promote cancer when you're getting most of your protein from plants as opposed to animal products. There are other parameters there. There's methionine, there's branched-chain amino acids, there's TMAO. There's other reasons why the bacteria in the gut on a high animal protein diet actually produce certain chemicals that promote atherosclerosis and inflammation, whereas when you eat more plant foods and less animal products and more plant vegetable matter, you have bacteria that have anti-inflammatory effects that have beneficial effects. And also, you know, we talk in my work about the G-bombs, the greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, the plant foods that have anti-angiogenesis effects in the body, that they don't allow blood vessels to fuel cancer cells or fuel fat growth. They have anti-fat growth effects and anti-cell proliferation effects. So what we're saying here, and what I'm saying, is that whereas in the years before, we thought that promoting excess growth was favorable because we thought that anything that made our muscles get bigger was favorable. And now we know that that if we can work on building our muscles, we'll produce local growth hormone. It won't systemically raise systemic growth hormone. And we shouldn't be trying to produce excess muscle growth in the kitchen. We should be promoting that in the gym. We shouldn't be trying to get artificially large muscles because that could promote prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and things that will shorten our lifespan. So that the question you asked me, which I didn't answer yet, which is if that's the case, that animal protein is excessively growth promoting and can promote cancer and shorten our lifespan, then how much animal protein would be safe in a diet of mostly high plant protein foods? And I'm suggesting that figure is somewhat debatable. We know that all long-lived societies had less than 10% of calories from animal protein. The American diet was saying is 30%, and the paleo and other high protein diets might be 40 to 60% or more animal protein. They're dangerously high. So the question is, and I tried to answer this question looking at data on IGF-1 levels. To keep your IGF-1 level below 150, to keep those levels low, that animal protein might vary from person to person, ranging from 0 to 10%. Some people might be safe with 5%. Other people might be safe with 10%. And some people might be better with 0% animal protein. But my point is that once you push up that 10% mark, then you have the majority of people having an unsafe range of IGF-1, and you're promoting excessive amounts of disease. So on a societal level, if I was the Attorney General giving guidelines for Americans, I'd say that all Americans have to strive to keep their animal protein below 10%, but that further benefits for many people could be achieved as we lowered that further to about 5%.
Okay.
And we always know some person who does better with a little more animal products than other people do. But the problem is with those people who they find themselves they don't thrive on a vegan diet. And what they do wrong is then they figure that they're going to eat a high animal protein diet. Instead of trying to use plant proteins like hemp seeds and peas and beans and sunflower seeds and Mediterranean pine nuts, instead of trying to eat more plant protein and tempeh and then see how they can get by with as little animal products as possible, they go right onto these paleo programs and say, well, I wasn't felt on a vegan diet, so I'm going to eat 50% of my diet from animal products. One extreme or the other. You follow me?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so someone that is, eating the processed food, basically letting food control them, someone that's listening to this right now, they're currently letting food control them. They're eating whatever they see, and they're not really, they don't feel like they're in control or even able to have control. What would be the very first step that you would recommend for someone just to radically be able to change, their eating habits? Do you recommend a radical shift? Do you recommend just cutting out one thing at a time and just improving, week by week, or like how do you encourage someone or advise someone to start?
I can answer that in a few ways, but I'd have to say that before they start, I'd insist they have to read one of my books, because without the right information, they're going to fail, and without a lot of information, they're going to fail. They have to have more nutritional expertise, because without that, they're left So that's why I produce, videotape series and television shows and books, because, a little soundbite, they're not going to know what to do. And they're not going to know how to handle the detox symptoms and all those cravings and all the deal with their emotional eating problems. It takes skill and knowledge to be able to be successful dieting. That's why most diets fail. Right, that's number one. They need to get information before they start. Even when I wrote Eat to Live, one of my best-selling books, I wrote in the beginning of the book, don't make any decisions about what to eat. Don't change your diet. Don't come to any conclusions until you read the entire book and study it first. Then you can come back and make a decision about what to do. So I said, I want you to make a commitment, but don't decide on that commitment and what to do yet. First, you got to read every single page of this book first. But the
Absolutely.
So that's number one. Then the second thing is whether a person should go cold turkey and jump into it with both feet or inch into it gradually. That varies from person to person as to what's best for them. And I actually have a book called Eat to Health that takes them into it more gradually. And my books like End of Dieting or Eat to Live take it into a more jump right in, a little more whole. But you have to pick what's right for you. However, but you said a person who's addicted to food and they're addicted to sugar and they're eating all these. For most of those people, and most of them will fail on a diet if they inch into it with baby steps. Even though baby steps are better than nothing. It's like cutting back on cigarettes a little bit. You still will keep smoking and you keep snorting cocaine. You keep wanting more cocaine and wanting to smoke more. And for a lot of people, abstinence is the most effective way to get rid of their cravings. And that means to get rid of your ashtrays, get all cigarettes out of your house, get all sugar out of the house, all sweeteners, only natural plant foods, get all this junk out of your house, tell everybody you're changing over, and do it. And every day you can it's going to get easier and easier. Because eventually you're not going to desire those sweets anymore. You're not going to be craving junk food anymore. But you need a period of time of safety. And you have to make yourself a safe environment. That's why they have these drug rehab centers where people go away to get away from drugs. So not everybody can do baby steps because they're imbibing episodically in the junk that they're missing keeps promoting their addictions and keeps them in a merry-go-round of failure. So I think we have to, and that's where the reading of this information, and especially reading the success stories of people who've failed on every diet in the world for years until they found out that nutrient density was the way to go. And then, of course, we start out by people having a big salad every day as the main dish. So I have 3 basic foods or 3 basic techniques to get them started. One is put a big sign in your refrigerator that says the salad is the main dish. And at least at one meal a day, make a large salad with as much raw vegetables you can eat as the main dish of one of your meals. Number 2, make a big pot of vegetable bean soup once a week, usually on the weekend. Put in, leeks and onions and mushrooms and beans and vegetables and carrots and tomatoes and spices, whatever, Make a giant pot of this, either a chili or a bean soup, something with beans. And once you make the giant pot, you can, the next day when it's cooled off, you can put it in like 10 different containers and you can take it for lunch with you every day, with a piece of fruit or something, with a salad, And number 3, the third thing, is because green vegetables are the most, have a low nutrient density, have the highest micronutrient density per calorie, and have a low caloric density, and are so integral to people's health. I want people to eat a large double-sided serving of steamed greens, artichokes, asparagus, string beans, broccoli, kale, cabbage, and onions, some kind of dish every day. So those 3 things is to start out with. Big salad every day, serving of bean soup every day, and a big serving of double-sized servings of green vegetables, preferably with mushrooms and onions cooked. And just by crowding out of the foods that you can't take up room in your stomach, and just by flooding your body with nutrients, already starts to get your brain working better, already starts to reduce your ability to crave perverted food, and already automatically limits the caloric density of your diet by filling it in with so much high volume, high fiber, high water content foods.
Excellent information. So just to reiterate, get the information. A lot of people want the shortcuts, and that's why they end up with the whole yo-yo effect, and they don't make much leeway at all. In fact, they lose a little bit of weight. For every 5 pounds they gain, they'll gain 7, and they're just going in the wrong direction. So get the information, absolutely. If someone says to themselves, well, you know what, whatever excuses that we all use, right? I don't have time to read the book, or I need to go into some type of rehab because of my food addictions or whatever. I understand that you have retreats that you do as well for people to come and live this firsthand. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I just got back from Hilton Head, where we had a week of, a few hundred people there for a week of fun and a vacation. And they're in a closed environment. Every food, we have delicious buffets. But, being in that environment where the food is made for you and it's made delicious and you're getting instruction and lectured to, it's like people attend, right? Mm-hmm. And their spouses may not be there for this into it. Maybe the spouse is a paleo guy or something. Mm-hmm. They're there for the vacation, but they come, they taste the food, they hear the information, and it changes them. Even the people who think that they weren't going to change because they feel how great they feel. Everything works better in their body. They can see their blood pressure goes down. And so many hundreds of people get off their diabetic medications and blood pressure medications in 1 week. In 1 week, they've dropped their blood pressure, lost 5 to 10 pounds. So yes, I run seminars across the country. I do immersions for corporations, and we do vacations where people can come and immerse themselves in this information. It's very, very helpful for people. But of course, I am saying that the more information people have, the more expertise they glean, the higher the chances of success.
Absolutely. Well, I could go on and on. I have a million questions, and I'm sure all the viewers and listeners have a million questions. But I'm going to link some resources here, all of your books, put some links out to how to get in contact with your team to, if they want to do, one of the retreats or, listen to you live somewhere. The things that you're doing is just fabulous. You're really changing the world. And I just honor you and commend you. And thank you again for spending time with me and all of my viewers and listeners. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. That was really great. Appreciate all the good work you're doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, giving us great information. Tell us the best website to go to get all this information.
drfuhrman.com, which is drfuhrman.com.
Thank you for tuning in to Vitality Radio. This is Dr. Lionel King, and it's been a blast. Until next time, we will see you back here, same time next week. If you want to hear any archives of the show, you can go to vitalityradio.org. That's vitalityradio.org.
Now that you have filled your mind with just what you need to gain control of your health and vitality, it's time to take action. Visit vitalityradio.org to receive your free copy of Dr. King's best-selling book, Mastering Vitality, which will give you simple and practical guidelines customized just for you. We'll see you on the next episode of Vitality Radio. The content of Vitality Radio is for informational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard or delay seeking professional medical advice because of something you have heard on Vitality Radio.